In the final case file of the Oregon State Police, one line was highlighted in bold. No signs of forced entry. The victim simply vanished. But what they hid from the media and the public was the final video footage found on the phone recovered at the crime scene. The video was shot in a narrow 9:16 aspect ratio. The screen displayed nothing but pitch-black darkness, yet a continuous sound echoed in the background, a voice that couldn't possibly have come from a human throat. The heavy, distorted voice kept repeating a single phrase, "I can see you in the dark. Why won't you look at me?" Ethan, a 28-year-old video editor and documentary filmmaker, was working on the biggest psychological thriller series of his life. Far from the crowded, noisy streets of New York, he rented an ultra-modern, glass-walled cabin deep in the dense Blackridge woods of the Pacific Northwest. It was one of the most remote areas in the U.S. His plan was to stay there in complete isolation to finalize the cut of his project. The cabin was state-of-the-art, smart locks, 4K security cameras, and motion sensor lights. Surrounded by towering, dark pine trees that cast a strange, suffocating darkness even in deep-breaking daylight, the setting felt completely detached from reality. For the first 2 days, everything was perfectly normal. Ethan worked relentlessly on his ultra-wide curved monitors. His setup was incredibly high-end. The visuals were so crisp, they looked like an Unreal Engine 5 hyper-realistic render. The silence outside was perfect for his cinematic workflow. But on the third night, a terrifying disruption breached that silence. It was around 2:15 a.m. Ethan was intensely focused on his 8K resolution monitors when a notification flashed on his phone. Motion detected at front porch. Ethan lazily picked up his phone and checked the live camera feed from his smart home app. The screen showed the porch in ultra-realistic night vision. A cold wind was blowing outside, swaying the shadows of the trees. He looked closely. There was no one on the porch. Probably just a branch moving in the wind, he told himself. But just as he was about to close the app, there was a sudden movement at the extreme right edge of the frame. A tall, thin shadow was standing in the corner of the screen. It looked somewhat human, but its arms hung down at an unnatural length, stretching past its knees. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He zoomed in on the video, but the figure stood perfectly motionless, staring directly into the night vision lens. Suddenly, the cabin's AI smart home system activated on its own. The living room lights began to flicker, and the AI assistant's cold, robotic voice echoed through the house. "There is an uninvited guest at the door. Would you like me to unlock the door?" Ethan leaped from his chair. He quickly looked toward the main floor-to-ceiling glass door. It was pitch black outside. He grabbed the remote and turned the porch floodlights to their maximum brightness, but there was no one there. He refreshed the camera feed. The shadow was gone. The next day, Ethan tried to convince himself that it was just his mind playing tricks on him. Hallucinations are common after staring at screens for too long, but the fear inside him had begun to take hold. It was a psychological descent of his own mind, as if the line between reality and nightmare was blurring. On the fourth night, the weather took a violent turn. Heavy rain and fierce winds engulfed the entire forest. Ethan was in his bedroom when a loud crack echoed, and the cabin's main power supply was cut off. Only the emergency backup lights flickered on, bathing the entire house in a dim, bloody red glow. Then he heard something, not outside, but inside the house. Squish, drag, squish, drag. A wet, muddy sound came from the hallway, as if someone was dragging heavy, sluggish feet across the wooden floor. Ethan held his breath. He slowly turned on his phone camera, kept the flash off, and crept toward the hallway, recording silently. The air inside the house had suddenly turned ice cold. A strange, rotting stench filled the space. Ethan peeked around the corner of the hallway. Near the kitchen, bathed in the bloody red emergency light, stood that same tall shadow. But this time he saw that it was no shadow at all. Its skin was pale and translucent, like a corpse that had been decaying for weeks. Its face was completely flat, no eyes, no nose, just a torn ear-to-ear smile dripping with a thick, black liquid. Terrified, Ethan stumbled backward, but his foot accidentally struck a coffee table. A soft thud echoed in the silence. The entity stopped dead in its tracks. Its neck snapped around at an unnatural angle, staring straight in Ethan's direction. Then it sprinted towards him. It didn't run like a human. Its limbs scuttled across the floor and walls like a giant spider. Ethan ran for his life towards his bedroom. He slammed the door shut, locked the deadbolt, and pushed a heavy oak dresser against it. Outside the door, everything went completely silent. No scratching, no footsteps, nothing. Ethan sat on the floor, shaking violently. He looked at his phone. No service. He tried dialing 911, but every attempt returned a call failed error. Suddenly, a second smartphone slid under the gap of the door. It was Ethan's backup phone, which he had left on the living room couch. The screen was on, playing a video. Trembling, Ethan looked at the screen. It was a live feed. The footage showed him sitting on the bedroom floor, exactly as he was right now. But in the video, standing right behind him in the dark corner, was the entity, leaning in close to his neck. Ethan's blood ran cold. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, he turned his head to look behind him. From the darkness, two long, cold, wet hands rested on his shoulders. A choked, raspy voice whispered directly in his ear, "Your story is over, but I love your fear in 8K." When the police arrived to investigate the Blackridge cabin 2 weeks later, they found nothing. The cabin was spotless, no signs of forced entry, no signs of a struggle. All of Ethan's high-end monitors were powered off, except for the center one. On that monitor, a video played on a continuous loop. The footage showed Ethan standing in the middle of the dark woods, completely motionless, with that same wide, torn, unnatural smile plastered across his face. His eyes were completely black. The video render was flawless, presented in perfect UHD 4K resolution, with an entirely clean visual frame. No watermarks, no text, just pure, unadulterated terror.
For 3 months, the disappearance of Ethan remained a closed case. The official police report cited a likely wilderness excursion gone wrong, ignoring the bizarre circumstances of the pristine cabin and the chilling video left looping on his monitor. But Maya, Ethan's older sister, refused to accept the official narrative. She was a digital forensics analyst for a private cybersecurity firm in Seattle, someone who made a living finding the ghosts in the machine, the deleted files, the hidden metadata. When the police finally released Ethan's personal effects, Maya received a single cardboard box containing his backup phone, a cracked external hard drive, and his leather-bound journal. She set up a quarantine workstation in her basement, disconnected from her main network. She knew Ethan wasn't the type to wander into the woods. He was an obsessive creator. His upcoming documentary was meant to be the flagship launch for his new psychological thriller YouTube channel, titled Your Descent. He had spent months designing the visual identity, a minimalist logo, a 2560 by 1440 banner, all meticulously crafted to evoke a sense of deep, inescapable paranoia. Maya plugged the cracked hard drive into her terminal. The drive whirred, clicked, and finally mounted. She opened the primary project folder for Your Descent. Inside, amidst gigabytes of B-roll and audio stems, she found a hidden, heavily encrypted folder titled The Blind Spot Renders. It took Maya 6 hours of brute force decrypting algorithms to crack it. When she finally opened the folder, her blood ran cold. It contained hundreds of video files, all shot in a narrow 9:16 aspect ratio. But they weren't videos of the forest. They were videos of Ethan, recorded without his knowledge. Maya clicked the first file, dated a week before he vanished. The camera angle was impossibly high, looking down at Ethan as he typed at his desk. But there were no cameras installed near the cabin's ceiling. The perspective slowly shifted, drifting closer, hovering just inches above his hair. Maya paused the video and checked the file properties. The metadata was corrupted, but the resolution was staggering. It was raw, uncompressed 8K data. What recorded this? She thought. She moved to the next video. This one was recorded from inside the cabin's smart refrigerator, peering out through the glass shelves as Ethan poured a glass of water. Another was shot from the perspective of the bathroom mirror. The entity wasn't just in the house, it was in the network. It was using every lens, every sensor, every microchip as an eye. But the final video in the folder was different. It was named I Can See You.mp4. Maya pressed play. It was the same footage the police found. Ethan standing in the dark woods, smiling that horrific, ear-to-ear torn smile, his eyes completely black. But Maya was a professional. She didn't just watch a video, she dissected it. She dropped the file into her forensic software and began analyzing it frame by frame. At standard playback speed, it looked like a static shot of a possessed man. But when Maya slowed the frame rate down to 1 frame per second and cranked the exposure, the darkness behind Ethan wasn't empty. Hidden in the deep black pixels of the forest background were faces, hundreds of pale, featureless faces with gaping black holes for mouths, all staring directly at the camera. And then, at exactly frame 14,023, a massive, translucent, spider-like hand reached out from the edge of the screen, its long fingers wrapping around the camera lens. Suddenly, Maya's computer speakers emitted a deafening shriek of static. Her monitors flickered violently. A command prompt window forced itself open on her screen, overriding her system controls. Green text began typing itself at a rapid pace. You are looking at me. You are looking at me. Your descent begins now. Maya yanked the power cord from the wall. The basement plunged into darkness. The only sound was her own ragged breathing. Maya knew what she had to do. The police wouldn't understand this. You couldn't shoot an algorithm. You couldn't handcuff a digital virus that had somehow manifested into the physical world. She had to go back to the source. She had to go to Blackridge Pines. She packed her USV with specialized gear, deliberately leaving anything with a Wi-Fi card or an AI processor behind. No smart devices, no 4K digital cameras, no modern laptops. Instead, she brought heavy analog equipment, a 1980s Polaroid camera, a battery-powered dictaphone, heavy-duty industrial floodlights with manual switches, and a pair of analog night vision goggles that used image intensifier tubes rather than digital sensors. She arrived at the Blackridge cabin just as the sun was dipping below the tree line. The yellow police tape still fluttered limply across the front porch. The towering pines looked like iron bars, caging the glass house in. Maya broke the tape and unlocked the front door. The air was stale, smelling faintly of ozone and something else, a sickly sweet, rotting scent, the exact smell Ethan described in his journal. Maya spent the next 2 hours completely disabling the cabin's smart home system. She smashed the Wi-Fi routers, severed the fiber optic cables with bolt cutters, and ripped the digital security cameras from the walls. She plunged the cabin back into the analog age. If the entity used digital lenses to see, she was going to make it blind. She set up her industrial floodlights, running thick extension cords to a massive gas-powered generator she had hauled onto the porch. By 10 p.m., the cabin was a fortress of analog technology. Maya sat in the living room floor, her Polaroid camera resting in her lap, waiting. At midnight, the temperature in the room plummeted. Maya could see her breath misting in the air. Then she heard it. Squish, drag, squish, drag. The sound wasn't coming from the hallway this time. It was coming from the roof of the cabin. Heavy, dragging footsteps moving across the glass skylight above the living room. Maya didn't look up. She knew that looking directly at it through the naked eye might be exactly what it wanted. Instead, she raised the analog night vision goggles to her face and switched them on. The world turned a grainy, glowing green. She slowly tilted her head upward. Crouched on the skylight was a monstrosity. It was vaguely humanoid, but its limbs were impossibly elongated, bent at sharp, agonizing angles. Its pale, translucent skin clung to a skeletal frame. But the most terrifying part was its face. It didn't have eyes. Instead, embedded into its face, where its eyes and mouth should be, were dozens of shattered camera lenses, glittering like the compound eyes of a massive insect. It was frantically tapping against the glass, confused. The digital network it used to navigate was gone. Maya's analog sabotage had worked. It was trapped in physical space, unable to glitch back into the network. Suddenly, the entity stopped tapping. The head snapped downward. One of the camera lenses in its face focused directly at Maya. Crash! The skylight shattered. Shards of heavy glass rained down as the entity plummeted into the living room, landing silently on its elongated limbs like a spider. Maya didn't scream. She rolled backward, dodging a sweeping strike from the creature's long, wet arm. She grabbed the manual switch for the industrial floodlights and slammed it upward. Bang! A blinding, intense wash of pure, unfiltered halogen light flooded the cabin. The entity shrieked, a high-pitched digital screeching sound, like a dial-up modem being fed through a distortion pedal. It thrashed wildly,
throwing its long arms over its lens-covered face. It wasn't used to raw analog light. It was born in the dark of binary code and digital shadows. "Where is he?" Maya shouted, her voice cracking with terror and rage. The creature stopped thrashing. It slowly lowered its arms. The rotting, ear-to-ear smile from Ethan's video slowly carved its way across the creature's featureless jaw. From deep within the creature's throat, a voice emerged, but it wasn't a monster's voice. It was Ethan's. "Maya, Maya, please, it's dark in here. There are no pixels. It hurts, Maya." Maya froze. The voice was a perfect replication of her brother's terrified pleading. The hesitation cost her. The entity lunged forward with terrifying speed, pinning Maya to the wooden floor. Its cold, rotting hands wrapped around her throat. The smell of ozone and decay was overpowering. It leaned in close, its lens-covered face mere inches from hers. The lenses were